Well, good morning or afternoon, depending on when you're listening to this, and welcome to RPM with Nyameka. I am filling in for her today because she is going to be a guest on her own show. Welcome, Nyameka. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing well. It's hot in here.
Oh, yeah, Shane, we had to cut the AC so that you'd be able to hear
No,
what's
it's hot
going
in
on.
here. The interview. I'm on the hot seat.
Oh, you
That's what
are!
I mean.
I'm thinking about like we're getting hot because it's hot in here. Okay, the temperature's hot, yes, and the seat is hot. Well, as you know, with RPM, we always like to start with this one special question. What is on your playlist?
The interesting thing is for somebody that loves music, and I thought about it, like on my playlist right now, something that I've been like literally stuck on for a while is not so much music. It's but I play through a streaming music platform, so I guess it's on my playlist. It's actually Paul's Final Missionary Journey. Yeah, it's so interesting for me because you're listening to it and you feel like he's on trial, and obviously he is on trial, but just the whole different culminating things that come in. He gets arrested and he goes on trial, and then they're like, this man is not guilty. We can't hold him, and then they still hold him, and then this guy. This one governor, because he wanted to do a favor, he left Paul in prison because now he doesn't want to have a bad name. And then the other one, obviously Paul realizes he's been there for too long. He's like, he wants an appeal, like the highest court in the land in South Africa. I think is the one in Bloemfontein. And then they're like, well, if he hadn't asked for an appeal, then we would let him go, but we can't. So this political thing, and just how even just right now in South Africa, they kind of things that are happening, and they remind you of that whole thing of just people for a long time have not really been have always had good intentions. Somebody is not guilty, they say it. In the Bible it says it in that, because I'm listening from Acts 21 up until Acts 28.
Yeah.
And they're like, we don't find anything, we can't charge him with anything. And one of the governors, he had Paul come to him quite a number of times because he thought Paul will actually bribe him. And it's like, wow, this thing has been there for a while, eh?
Yeah.
It's been there for a while. So these are things.
The corruption.
Yep, the corruption has been there for a while.
It has. There's nothing new under the sun. Yeah, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
I think back to when we first started doing ministry, the Bible on CD, which we don't even use anymore, was becoming popular. And then this guy recorded Max Lucane, the NIV version of the Bible. And it really has transformed how we interact with Scripture.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely just love it. I listen to it's called Street Lights. It's got a hip hop vibe to it. So it's they read the Bible, but it's got background music.
Nice.
It sounds very good. Yeah.
Okay.
That's why I listen to it.
Okay. Maybe we can get a sponsor. What's it called again? Street Lights.
Street Lights Bible.
Lights.
Yeah, Street Lights Bible.
Okay.
It's for the streets, and obviously you know what the word says. Your word is a lamp unto my feet and light unto my path. So just like that whole thing of it's definitely for the young people who love scripture, who love music, and who want to connect with both.
Yeah.
And so that's what it is.
As the young folks would say, that's what's up. I love it. Okay, I didn't even know about that. I'm going to recommend that to some young people that I know. So tell me, what do you do?
Whoa, what do? I help people find significance in their lives and move from point of doing a job to a purpose. That's what I do.
Say that again. Sounded so poetic.
No, I help people. Basically, it's ministry, but I try to be fancy,
Yeah, I like that.
I help people move from a point of just living everyday life into having a purpose. Now, purpose, it's definitely defined from why are you here on earth? What makes you feel like you can have something to add into the world? How do you see yourself in connection with the world? So that happens in different aspects. One of them is Crossroads. Crossroads is with an organization called Campus Crusade for Christ. We work with the education part of life, and we just want to make sure that we equip as much as we can so that we teach about how to have good morals, how to have good character.
Yeah.
Something that is so paramount. I look at the world today, I look at my country today. That is so important. We need that. We need to be able to point people towards an alternative, which I don't feel and see that there is today. And also the other thing is we talk about lenses. What lenses are you wearing? When it comes to race, when it comes to social issues, when it comes to the gospel, what lenses are you wearing? And how can you actually put your pen in the world and actually have a part to play in making sure that we are wearing lenses that are bringing glory to God.
Wow, that's awesome, Nyameka. It just sounds like you're really making an impact in people's lives. Would you say that?
I try.
You do.
Try.
I know you do. I know. Just your legacy is long. Yeah. Oh my goodness. So just tell me, one of the things that, speaking of like lenses and purpose and things like that, just how does race and politics fit into the gospel?
Race and politics are intertwined in the gospel. I say this because I told you now I'm involved with lenses, and we've been doing lenses now. I've been involved at least since 2018. And since that time, I've been able to see the Bible differently as well. I've been able to connect with the Bible differently as well. Just last week we had what we call a snapshot, which is very much like a webinar. And one of the questions I had was, what is social justice? And I answered the question by looking at scriptures from the book of Amos and the book of Micah. Now, these are Old Testament books, right? You would think that if social justice is a term, it must be New Testament or even just recent, but actually, those scriptures let me know that it's not. So, in the book of Micah and in the book of Amos, there was an injustice that was happening. The leaders of Israel had received power through greed, through theft. The poor were being neglected. They were being sold into slavery. There was wheelings and dealings. The prophets were basically being bribed into talking about good tidings to the people. So you realize that the gospel and race and politics are intertwined. Now, whether they should be together or not, that's another question right there. I think that question actually can be taken apart, but you realize that it's always been there. Even just now, I told about the trial of Paul. Politics were involved in there, wasn't it? It was a political. It was a political agenda, and so and just like I just did a history, and I did an exam about the New Testament Christians, and politically those Christians were definitely repressed and not given freedom for political purposes, for political gain. So yes, we as much as we want to neglect and as much we want to run away from the topic comes to us. Individuals make the topic come to us. So we need to untangle what has been tangled so that we can bring the gospel in its purity. We need to make sure we present the gospel in its pure, beautiful self that it is, so that any other things that are sort of attaching themselves to the gospel will be removed. I'm talking too much now, but a lot of people are running away from God because of politics. They're running away from God because of race issues. And then you realize we definitely have a responsibility to make sure we bring people to God, not using them, but also sort of shining the light maybe through them.
Yeah, that's so true. Because, with all that's going on here, we got the Zondo trial. In America, we have George Floyd, and goodness, it's just and just so much of that. It's a hot button. Yes, it's race. It's political because you have here's the ANC and the other political groups that are like they have opinions about it, and it's hard to detangle the two. I'm like, I don't even see how, because race and the way that we set up our governments and the different systems, it's just difficult to see them apart. But I don't know, like, what have you seen? How long have you been working, either involved in the church or in ministry? How long have you been working? I forgot to even ask you that. How long have you been working?
Yeah, I've been in full-time ministry now since 2011.
Oh, yeah, that's a while.
Yeah, and so that's the first question.
Yeah. So just how have you seen this dynamic of race and politics play out, and where the gospel is shedding light and bringing transformation?
Sure. In my personal experiences, I feel like definitely the church could have done more and should have done more. Or should have had answers when people had questions. I feel that there is that whole thing of, I'm doing the gospel, I'm not involved in racial things. That's true, we should. But the fact is, we are not. So I've seen people not wanting to address issues that are so dire. The most recent one that South Africa will remember is the fees must fall. And the fees must fall, let me just explain. The fees must fall was this movement that was started by university students about, the fact that they can't afford to study. They want the fees to be free. Now, like I said, all of these things, you can always dig into them. You can't just give one blanketed statement, one blanketed view. You have to dig into them to see exactly what is going on, because there's so many responses to that. And obviously, the whole default responder is always the government. And so, because young people are young, they're vibrant, and they brought it to the church. Like, okay, we know what the government is going to say, but what are you going to say? And interesting answers from the church, none God glorifying at all. And that's the sad that's the sad state of affairs, if that's the case, where the church gives answers, but the answers are not helping. So like I said, all of the statements, you have to dig them. You can't just give one blanketed view. You can't give one blanketed response. They have to be dealt with, I guess, case by case, so to speak. I'm not going to mention like the churches, whatever, but really that could have been one of the chances the church had in terms of like responding to a matter that was already presented. It already presented itself, but I know some churches failed dismally. Some churches actually offended people to a point of people like saying, I'm leaving church because of this. And that's sad.
That is sad, because we often talk about how the gospel has the answer. Jesus is the answer. We say these things, but yet we don't provide. We don't we're not willing to always seek God and say, okay, God, we can't. We don't have any way, any means. We don't have any money, so what can we do? But I bet you if we began to just approach God in a different way, I'm sure we would see something different.
Definitely. God has every answer. You know what I think? I think God is waiting for us to ask, like, you know what? I'll give you the answers if you ask. What does the Bible say? Ask and you shall receive. And so, I understand though, historically, like I said, I just did a course about church history. And one of the things was the church had, I guess in its way, had dismally failed in trying to, the whole church and state thing was together, and then it failed dismally. So the church had to take itself out of the state so that the church can function independently, which, it is and it did. But sometimes that whole separation, some people just take it to the extreme.
That's right.
It's like how, I think you can use personal conviction. I don't know who I was talking to, but I said to somebody, you can use personal conviction, which is from a Christian point of view, to actually solve a problem, because that's what That's why God gives us the wisdom, because He knows that we can ask Him for wisdom. He says, "Ask for wisdom, and I'll give it to you."
That's right. He
Yeah.
sure will. He sure will. Well, that leads us to the next question. Is like, how does your passions lead to the partnership and collaboration with rebuilding South Africa?
So my passions are twofold.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is education, as I've mentioned before. I'm very much passionate about building young people. I'm very much passionate about seeing young people realize that there are two types of character. There's bad character and there's good character. They actually have a choice of choosing good character over bad character. There is a term, integrity, which everybody knows, I think. But simply put, integrity is doing the right thing when no one is watching. And my dream and my goal and my collaboration, my willingness to collaborate is that whole thing of, we can teach young people how to have good character. We can teach young people how to have integrity, so that young people can make the right choices when no one is watching. Because if you teach the young people of today, you're influencing the old people of tomorrow.
That's right.
And those people could be leaders. Those people could be, in positions of power.
Mm-hmm.
The president from 20, 30 years from now is growing up.
That's right.
What are we doing to build him or her?
Mm-hmm.
Or them? Or, it doesn't matter, because it's going to be a couple of them. What are we doing as a society to build them? So that's my dream. And the second one, my collaboration, is the issue of really just bringing race to the fore, race relations to the fore. This is probably more in church partnership. The other one was education, which is broad. This one is very much particular, which is the church. We as the church have been labeled so many things because of our lack of involvement. And one of them is lack of involvement within the race issue. So bring light to the issue, talk about the issue, solve the problem that is plaguing our country, because there is a lot that is plaguing our country, and we need to definitely make sure that we move away from these two topics not mixing. They don't mix, but in reality they do, because we have a history of South Africa. I mean, I'm not going to get into those things, but South Africa racially has a history, a very bad history, and the church sometimes was at the center, isn't it? So how do you make sure those things are sort of now solved, those problems are resolved, and we have to make sure that those problems are resolved. We can't run away. We can't run away anymore. So yes, so church and education, those are my collaborations, and I wish those can go even further. Yeah.
It sounds like with the work that you do through Crossroads and Lenses, they both give you the opportunities to work in your passions. I came across something interesting last night. I like to listen to podcasts too.
Yeah.
And it's just so often, especially when it comes to the issue of race, even sometimes education, we feel like as Christians it's an optional conversation because we're focused on the gospel without realizing that these are opportunities
definitely
for us to proclaim, to show exactly how Christ speaks. And I think that's, when we read the gospels, we see Jesus all the time speaking directly to those issues and not shying away, not being afraid, but he enters in. And if we could just enter in, we'll probably be surprised with what we would learn, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. There will be so much. I listen to a song. I love hip hop, and I listen to this one of the iconic hip hop groups, Christian hip hop groups, Cross Movement, and they were talking about 9/10. 9/10, obviously in America, 9/10, the 10th of September. And the 11th of September, that's when the whole bombings happened. And the 10th of September, people were living as if there's no tomorrow.
That's right.
And then the 11th happened, and then obviously it was like that whole panic. And they say in their song, they say that, on the 18th of September, the churches were packed.
They were.
Jesus is the answer for the world today. Whenever there's a desperation, whenever there's a confusion, whenever there is something that needs direction, there's an opportunity for us to make sure we provide it for them.
That's right.
They came to Jesus because, you know what? There was no other help. So there's opportunities that we have when this crisis hit. Like for instance, most of the online churches will tell you they grew. Last year, they grew. Obviously, some people stopped going to church, but online churches will tell you now, like their numbers soared, like they saw numbers like they've never seen before. Why? Because 2020 we had a crisis. There was a huge crisis. So there's always an opportunity for us to bring the gospel. But are we ready though?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's the other question. Are we ready to actually make sure we welcome people without judging? Because
Yes.
that's the other thing. That's another topic for another day. But we are known for being the most judgmental people
Yeah.
in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like come to Jesus only if you remove your sin. Hello.
I know. I know. Yeah. Jesus is gonna deal with that sin now. You know, you cannot walk with him and him not. We begin to point out those areas in your life. But as the ambassadors of the gospel, we go in obedience. We share the gospel. We leave the results up to the Lord.
Yeah,
You know, and he even their growth is up to the Lord. You know, there's only so much that we can do.
We are literally just vessels.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
We don't we obviously there's a mandate for us to make sure that we represent him correctly, but he does everything.
Yeah.
The thing is, he can do it without us. I wonder if Christians know that God can do these things without us. He just gives us an opportunity to make sure that it's done.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah.
Yeah. It's just his graciousness. He wants us to experience him, to know his character, and that's why he invites us into the process. But yeah, he could do it all by himself. I'm glad he does, because it is fun. I learn how he's made me. I don't know about you, and I learn more about him, so that I can live for his glory. So this is a good question now. If you were president of South Africa,
Oh yeah.
what would you do? How would you change this nation?
Wow, for 1 week. Okay. The one thing that I always, I'm wired in such a way that I'm very much futuristic.
Mm-hmm.
And so I realized that I am doing this for today. I may not see the results for today, but the results could come 10, 20 years from now. So I would definitely make sure I implement things that would benefit the country in the long run. Innovation. We need innovation. Like our infrastructure, even just our technical infrastructure is old. We need things that will propel us into the future. Education. We need futuristic leaders. You make sure that there's a leader who doesn't only just manage. You know, I read a book years ago. I read a book by Bill Hybels, and he was talking about the different kinds of leaders. Now, we need to understand that there are different strengths within leadership. There are leaders who are change agents. There are leaders who are strategists. There are leaders who are managers. There are leaders who, see the future, futuristic, different kinds. I can't even remember all of them, but this is just some of them that he mentioned. So make sure you know what kind of a leader you are. Then you can basically then function very well in the position that you have. So I feel like a lot of the leaders in South Africa have been put there as managers. And you're like, a manager, just make sure it runs. I got it like this. I need to make sure it runs as it is. I cannot, there's no strategy. Okay, what can we do to make sure this actually functions 10 years from now? Like futuristic, okay, let's look at it like this. So I feel like a lot of our leaders are definitely the manager type of leader, which means it's not bad. It's just that, are you right for that position? And that's why our infrastructure is falling apart, because we've got managers of leaders. So like I said, I like to think into the future. The other thing that I'm passionate about, I like to develop people. I want to make sure people are placed within the right position. So I'll place the right person. Like your strength, from what I've seen, your strength is make sure you run. You're a change agent.
Yeah.
Take that. From what I've seen, your strength, you do this. So that everybody functions very well. Nobody's jealous of the other person if the other person does a good job. But you're like, no, but I'm also doing my good job because I'm in my position that is meant for me. So that's what I would do. I just make sure everything is placed to exist and function in the future.
Wow. Yeah. And yeah. That's really great. Of course, you bring in a great perspective on what needs to happen, and you are actually on the ground, as you would say, in terms of being a part of the development of these future leaders who would be more than managers. So if you are change agents, if you are futuristic in your thinking, look, South Africa needs you guys. Raise up, be counted, get yourself ready so you can go to work. I'm originally from America. I didn't even say that. I'm Melanie Bass. I don't even know if I said my name. But originally from America. I've been here for probably like about 10, 11 years. And 12 years? It has been 12. Oh my goodness. But it's just, I have grown to love South Africa. And I can see the potential. Yes, it is a young nation in terms of the new democracy, but the potential is endless.
Yeah.
And I think the things that you mentioned, like the whole fees must fall, is like you have to give these young people the opportunity. Look, they are overcoming some great challenges. And if you don't just find the money, like churches, we need you to help send these kids to school so that they won't be at your house trying to steal from you. They need to be trained. They need jobs. How can we create
They need to develop
jobs?
a skill.
They need skills. And so you're right. You have to be more than a manager. You need so many different elements. And so we pray that things would be moving in that direction soon. I hope we hope that. Yeah. Well, is there anything else you want to share? Just parting thoughts? Any words of wisdom that you would like to give your audience today?
Wow. Very simple words: love God and love people. Love God. Represent God well. Love Him with all your heart and all your understanding. And represent Him well. So many of our leaders, I don't have to tell you, so many of our leaders, Christian leaders, have fallen by the wayside because they didn't represent Christ well. So represent Him well. I'm speaking to myself as well. Have the decency, if you no longer representing Christ, like, you know what, I'm no longer representing Him, and to walk away. Don't have that pride to stay, I'm a Christian, and then obviously now it's the Lord's name that is being decimated. So love God, love Him enough to say, you know what, at this point I don't feel like I'm representing you well, then I'm gonna go. No, it sounds so bad, but I'm trying to say represent Him well. Represent Him well and love people. It's important for us to just show a love for people. Just respect people from their standpoint. Respect people's opinions. When I disagree with somebody, it doesn't mean that I don't love them. And the sad part is that with social media and all that kind of stuff, that if I just say I disagree with you, people automatically think I said I hate you. And I hope that we can have that whole thing of I love you, but I disagree with you on this point. When you said this, I disagree with you on that, but I still love you. Politically, there's so many things that we have, so many views within the Christian world, that so many views that are different. Different is not bad. Different is different. And so when we love God, we know how to represent Him. We definitely worship Him. We try as much as we can to represent Him towards people, but also love people, realizing that we are almost 8 billion, if not 8 billion people, 8 billion different people, 8 billion different characters, personalities that we've been placed here to try to understand each other, which, praise the Lord, we do, but we don't understand each other, which is God's honest truth as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's beautiful. Love God and love people. Difference is not a bad thing. It just takes me to, in Corinthians, how it talks about we are one body but made of different parts, and each functions differently. And the sooner we realize it, embrace it, and celebrate it, some parts are more noble than others. Some we're a little ashamed of, but we're still called to love one another. And so for believers, love God and love others. I couldn't have said it better. Wow.
Thank you.
Well, Nyameka, thanks so much for. How was the hot seat for you?
Hot.
I thought we were going to have to take a break and get a cup of water, but we made it through. And I tell you, it's been a privilege to just kind of sit and just chop it up, as our friend Deuce would say. And just catch up and just hear, what's on your heart, and even just being a part of your program today. So thanks for your time. And we'll see you guys next time on RPM with Nyameka. But I'm actually Melanie. Have a good day.